What's up, guys? Welcome to this episode of the Budding Watch Enthusiast. Here on this channel, I review and discuss wristwatches from the perspective of a newer watch collector. If you enjoy what you see here, please consider clicking the red subscribe button and the bell icon down below. So, first video of 2020. That means State of the Collection is coming soon. There's a watch review coming down the pipe soon that I'm not going to talk about quite yet. Not going to reveal what's on my wrist just yet in this video. Today, though, I wanted to do a video that I've been planning to do for a little bit, and it really, the thought process behind this video really crystallized with the recent review that I did of the Winfield Mission Timer 1 watch. And that is that my stance on quartz has evolved, I think, quite a bit, especially in the past, 6 months or so. Now, I don't think my evolution on quartz movements is some revelation that no one's ever had before. I think that this is a maturity that watch enthusiasts just kind of go through over time. I mean, part of that starts with kind of discovering this side of the watch hobby. When you discover mechanical movements for the first time, when you learn more about mechanical watches, it really kind of blows quartz out of the water. And I've said it on this channel many times before that I kind of approach this hobby from a more kind of romantic aspect, and there's just something a little bit more soulful about, all of these parts on a mechanical watch working in concert with one another that you just don't get with a quartz watch. So, of course, discovering mechanicals for the first time pretty much made me shun quartz entirely. And one of the reasons that I've never really given another look to quartz watches in general is because I had a lot of trouble disassociating quartz movements in general from the crappy, fashion watches that we typically find quartz movements in, 95% of the time. And just like with mechanical movements, there are degrees of quality in quartz movements as well. And I've really grown to appreciate some of the quartz movements that are a bit higher quality than what you would typically find in your average, fossil watch. Now, for a while, the only quartz movement that I would own in my watch collection was actually kind of early on. I was very taken with the Seiko Meca Quartz movements that you find in a lot of different micro-brand chronograph watches. I've talked about this movement on the channel before, most notably when I reviewed the Stratton Synchro way back 2 years ago. But this is essentially a quartz movement that does quartz for the timekeeping, but then there is a mechanical chronograph module that is kind of attached to the movement as well. So though it is battery powered at the end of the day, you still get the smooth sweep of the seconds hand that you would normally find with the mechanical chronograph watch. You still get the instant snapback when you reset the chronograph hand that you would normally find on a mechanical chronograph watch as well. And I still love these movements because you get what you really want in terms of the chronograph functionality with these watches, but it brings all that down to a much more affordable price point. Even with micro-brand chronographs, if they have a Valjoux movement in it, like a base Valjoux movement, you're still looking to spend probably at least around $1,000, if not more, whereas the Meca Quartz comparable watches that a lot of these brands put out can usually be found for under $400. So that's, again, a great value proposition and makes it a little bit more attainable for those of us working on a tighter budget. And this level of fineness also extends to the Bulova high-frequency quartz movements that they use. When I reviewed the Bulova Lunar Pilot, this is the kind of movement that's in there as well. Again, works the same way where the second hand sweeps smoothly. This one does have the running seconds, but it beats twice per second, making it a bit more accurate than your typical quartz movement is going to be. Now, obviously, the thing that really got me to kind of change my tune on quartz in general is kind of learning more about what one could argue is one of the best quartz movements that exist in the world, and that is the Grand Seiko 9F quartz movement. This is the movement that you can point to show people that there are quartz movements out there that get just as much, tender love and care when it comes to design, when it comes to aesthetics, when it comes to technology, as even the most advanced mechanical movements out there. Yeah. This is just a ridiculously cool watch movement in general. Forget the fact that it's a quartz. You have the enhanced torque on the watch, which allows it to have larger, heavier hands that you don't normally see on most quartz watches. A lot of quartz watches, the hands are very thin because the movement doesn't provide enough power to actually move the hands around. The watch also temperature regulates the quartz crystals inside of the watch as well, which is one of the ways that it's able to maintain its fantastic accuracy rating. Grand Seiko 9F quartz movements are rated to be between +10 to -10 seconds per per year. And I say all the time that, you know, kind of showing off quartz movements with an exhibition case back is silly to me. Like, I wouldn't want to look at a quartz movement because they're not normally very much to look at. This has a level of finishing and polish on the movement that you would expect to see from a mechanical movement in that same similar price range. It's actually kind of really nice to look at compared to your average quartz. And kind of looking at the 9F quartz in general kind of reminded me why quartz watches came on the scene and became popular in the first place. Like, it just works, it just runs. It's something you don't have to worry about. I'm not going to change in the fact that I do love the ritual of picking up a watch out of the watch box that you haven't worn in a couple days, you know, popping the crown, winding it up a little bit, setting the time. I do really still enjoy that part of the hobby, which is weird to say because it's actually massively inconvenient when you really think about it. But there is some usefulness in having, you know, that one or two watches in your collection that are quartz, that are just running, that you just don't have to sit there and worry about that. You can just pick it up, put it on your wrist, and go. And there's some brands out there that are doing quartz correctly. But take Christopher Ward as a great example of this. You can get the Christopher Ward Trident Pro with an automatic movement, and it's going to cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $900. You can get that exact same watch with a Ronda movement inside of it, a quartz movement. With everything else is the same. You still get the great finishing on the case, you still get the cool looking dial, but it's going to knock off like $400 off that price point. So if you're someone that doesn't mind having a quartz movement, that doesn't need to have the mechanical movement, potentially save yourself a lot of money, and you're still basically getting the same exact watch. And I think if there are more companies out there, like a Christopher Ward, for example, or like a Winfield, for example, that sweats out the other details on the watch and still makes a really well put together product overall that just happens to have a quartz movement inside of it, I think that some of that negative stigma around quartz watches would go away. But I think that's kind of the point, is I realize that you don't have to spend $3,000. You don't have to get a Grand Seiko 9F quartz movement to get a decent quartz watch out there. And I think every collection out there should have one or two decent quartz watches, not digital watches, but decent analog quartz watches that you can have maybe as like a beater, or just like something that you can use as kind of your everyday watch when you don't want to have to think about what you have to wear. And don't worry, I'm not going to all of a sudden shun mechanical watches and collect nothing but quartz watches. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you doing this video if I hadn't discovered mechanical movements, and that's still what I'm most passionate about when it comes to watch movements within the hobby. But I have definitely gone from someone who is kind of like, keep those quartz watches over here, to kind of appreciating the positive aspects about them when they're done correctly. Those cheap fashion watch quartzes, though, they can still sit on the shelf with everything else, because I never need to own another one of those for the rest of my life. So guys, those are my thoughts on how my feelings on quartz watches have evolved over the years. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. That's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, click the thumb down below. If you loved it, click the red subscribe button and ring the bell icon. Share this video out on social media or in forums to anyone else that you think might also find it useful. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all the next time.